everybody. How are you doing at this moment? We're going to begin by introducing ourselves. Hello, I am Angela, and I am in the DOUBLECLICKS.
I'm Aubrey. I am also in the DOUBLECLICKS.
I'm SAMMUS, and I'm on tour with the DOUBLECLICKS.
I'm Robbie Benson. I'm with the Super Soul Bros, and we just shared the stage for the first time with the DOUBLECLICKS and SAMMUS last night. Yes.
I'm Too Mellow, and I double-click on audio programs.
There you go.
I am the remixer and composer for Read Only Memories.
So I will step in as moderator until our moderator gets here. But the first question is, how long have you been doing this professionally, and how long have you been making music personally?
Sweet. Do we want to do a quick poll of the audience before at the very top?
Yes.
Can you raise your hand if you are a musician or aspiring musician or a person who's interested in making music? Sweet. And raise your hand if you are not at all that kind of person. Awesome. So most of you are. That's cool. That gives us a good idea of what to talk about. We have been making music as the DOUBLECLICKS for almost exactly 5 years now, to answer that question. And what was it? How do we get started?
How did you get started, and how long have you been making music sort of in your personal life, not necessarily as like a career?
Right. It sort of, the DOUBLECLICKS started as sort of our first serious songwriting project. Aubrey plays the cello, and I was pretending that I knew how to play the guitar. And we would go out to open mics and play, and eventually found people who were laughing with us, not at us, when we would talk about nerdy stuff, and realized it was a thing we could do. We didn't really know about like nerd music as a genre when we started. We were basically just writing folk songs about the things we enjoyed, which I think is the case with a lot of people who find themselves in this world. And then thanks to internet and YouTube and encouragement, we were able to keep doing this thing. It's awesome.
Awesome. So in terms of how long I've been doing this professionally, actually about 5 years. I guess there's two aspects of it, because I produce and I rap, and they're had separate origin stories. But in terms of production, that started when I was actually in high school. I don't know if any of you have heard of the program MTV Music Generator. It's like a PlayStation game, and I used it to make beats, but I couldn't export the beats, so I was really sad. And then my brother taught me how to use the software Reason, which is a beat making software, so I started making production there. In terms of rapping, I started that around 5 years ago when I moved to Houston, Texas to become a teacher. The state of the educational system was really depressing to me, so I was like, I'll just make rap music in my spare time to try to get through how miserable this is making me. And in terms of professionally, I would say I really started taking it seriously maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I guess I started playing music when I was in diapers. My dad played music. He played Hammond and B3 organs, so that's kind of what, when I was a kid, I was, I'll move this over to you. And I just grew up in a musical family, basically. My dad played piano, my uncle played bass, so I was always around musicians, and I've just been playing most of my life. When I was about in high school, my brother kind of dabbled on drums. Jeff, you just showed up, so we got the moderator now. That's my brother Jeff. So we both kind of would jam out on playing video game tunes. But I've played funk and R&B and jazz kind of related music most of my life. But we grew up. My generation is Nintendo generation, so we played a bunch of video game tunes for fun, and then eventually I met some more musicians that were interested in putting together a band that would actually do that in a more organized way. And so the Super Soul Bros kind of started happening right about when I professionally was a musician, not by virtue of the Super Soul Bros. That wasn't my professional gateway, but that kind of happened as I started gigging with other bands. So I became basically like a session keyboard player in this Bay Area, playing with different artists, and I teach as well, and so I'm basically a full-time music. That's my professionalism 4 years ago, I would say, and that was about when Super Soul Bros started.
Thank you. I have been doing music for about 14 years now. I started when I was a teenager with band class, playing the clarinet, and eventually decided that I liked composing more, especially composing with samples. So I got the Acid Pro version 4 software and started stitching samples together. The genres that I started with were like big beat and drum and bass, jungle, very popular genres in the 90s. I was doing this in the 2000s. So you can only imagine the reception. It was about 6 years before anyone else heard my music. I was very private with it, but once I was ready to let it out, I felt like it was in a pretty good space. And it was about 9 or 10 years before anyone invested in it, kind of. I got signed to a nerdy music-focused label called Scrub Club Records that was online-based, and they really helped me with distribution. And just in the last 2 or 3 years, I've decided to go professional with it. I've only been doing it full-time for about 6 months, so it's still a very recent development in my life. And that's me.
We can probably all scooch in.
Take a poll. We did. We did.
Friends, you know. What was the answer?
Majority are interested in music.
And I'm Jeff. I'm here to moderate the panel. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. The first question I have for all of you is, how do you define success individually, since that's what we're all here to find out about? Starting over here maybe with the double clicks.
Happiness, I think. It's really hard to think about that. And somebody at one point told me, like, you just got to have a metric for success. Is it you're going to have 10,000 Twitter followers and that'll be this or it'll be this, and gave me these sort of very numerical ideas of what success would be. And then I realized you can get to that really easily by selling out everything you believe in. It wasn't an interesting thing for me to do. So I think what we try really hard to do is, not starve and like pay rent. And we don't have day jobs. We're very lucky about that. We're able to do what we do professionally. But the only way that I would feel successful doing that is that we're making exactly the stuff we want to make while doing it. So it's, I think, harder to do that. Like, there would be easier ways maybe to have the numbers that we want, but the actual satisfaction is way more important, I think.
I was speaking earlier today with Jeff, and I was saying that, like, I'm working towards an email list existence where I don't have to constantly respond to and look at emails, and I can be comfortable. And so I think success for me is, and I don't think I'm successful by these standards right now, but being able to do this in a way that's sustainable, it's still fun for me, it's making a social impact, and I don't have to sacrifice my relationships with people in order to do it. I think right now the nature of what I'm doing requires so much of me, so much of my energy and time that I do feel like I've missed important dates, important things, important memories. I've lost friends. Not in any sort of big blowout, but it was just like, oh, she hasn't been around for a lot of stuff. I'm going to stop texting and calling her to be there for these things. So those are real sacrifices that I believe in, but I hope that someday I won't have to make those kind of sacrifices. So yeah, success for me is being able to do this sustainably and in a way that I can still maintain my relationships with people. Oh, yeah.
Lights out. Yeah. No, that's you've all said basically what I would say. For the sake of time, I'll just say yeah, exactly. Basically, just be able to okay. Longer answer now. Sorry. No, what I think would be success for me as a nerd musician would be to full-time be a nerd musician. I'm currently not. I'm a teacher, I guess, full-time, and more so like a session keyboard player. Super Soul Bros is just a project of mine that I'm trying to get off the ground and make that more of a full-time thing. So I've not quite reached that. And not that Super Soul Bros or just being a nerd musician is the end goal, but I'd like to see that blossom more and basically have a creative domain to play with material and play it in a different style or in a different way than people have heard it, and get to play the styles of music that I grew up with and that I'm passionate about, and have an audience for it, and to be able to support myself doing that. But yeah, that's basically just saying the same thing.
Those flickering
That was a
lights.
fantastic-
Oh yeah. Great job.
Thank you.
They loved it.
The flickering lights are actually a really good illustration of what it feels like to be a musician. So I think success for me would be having enough struggle to keep myself, like metaphorically, hungry for more work, hungry for the microphone, what have you, without being literally hungry. I want to keep a good balance, never handing off, delegating too much of my work to others. I still want to feel like I drive the Too Mellow machine. But I also have to do this within reason so I don't drive myself crazy. Yeah, I think success for me would be that balance of still having to work hard, not ever feeling like you're super overshooting your goal, but always feeling like you're barely making it and that you value every little bit of work and praise that you get. But also, of course, staying sane, keeping healthy. Working out is very good. It's very good to work out. It's cheap, it's easy, and it really relieves stress. Yeah, that's you can buy my fitness tapes at twomellow.net. Yeah. And that's all for me.
That's very good. My next question was, how do you all decide to do a project, and why do you do that project in specific? Be it video games or really any other project you guys are working on. I'm assuming all of you have multiple projects that are constantly going on.
Yeah. You want to start down there?
Sure. So I have I have a few different kinds of projects that I do. Some of you may know the mashup or remix projects that I do, where I take existing properties with their own fan bases and mix them together. I do these in a creative fashion, where I kind of try to weave my own story of the things I'm remixing, so that it's not just two things being mashed together, but being melded together in a way that creates like a new type of thing. But I primarily do those things for free, and I do those for the exposure they get, for how often they're shared, for how many people download them, and people that might not like the stuff that I do primarily, but kind of enjoy me taking these things that they're already familiar with.
I wouldn't have hired you for ROM if I hadn't heard Nasylvania.
Well, thank you. There's a direct, yeah, that leads me to my next part.
Quick, get out of here, Matt, go!
I do kind of use the popularity from the free mashups to fuel the creative projects that I get paid for, which recently I made an album called Night Walks that was kind of my summation of the time I spent doing a near third shift job, and how I would get off after midnight and just want to go walk around, drive to a safe neighborhood and go walk around with my headphones on. And it's something I wanted to do personally for a long time. It's an instrumental album. It's really good homework music, but it's not exactly the kind of thing that would appeal to my fan base, who loves the really hard, really frenetic mashups of hip hop and video game music. So I have these two different sides where I'm doing the things that creatively fulfill me, that I do for a direct profit, and then on the other side I'm doing these things that are free and fun and I can just go crazy. I'm pretty satisfied with both of those, and I hope it continues to bounce and work out.
I guess taking on projects, are we speaking specifically within the nerd musician project realm, or just in general?
I suppose any project.
I mean, being a 20-something now, or a late 20-something, time just becomes a lot more valuable. And having a family myself and a daughter, you don't have. I just wish I had these like visions when I was 16. Like I could be hitting it so harder, like trying to do Super Soul Bros or whatever my projects were. Jeff and I do films. We're working on a couple Earthbound films. One's screening tomorrow, actually, if anyone's interested in Earthbound. Anyone played Earthbound? Okay, all right, woo, yeah.
Come to the screening at noon tomorrow for Earthbound Saga 5.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that will have a Q&A, and a lot of the staff and the cast and crew, yeah, anyway. Projects, that being a project, we did that a couple years ago, and this last summer, being Camp Fan Gamer, we played like a weekend-long convention that was centered on Earthbound fans. We played the entire soundtrack. These are big projects that I think have the biggest. They'll make the biggest splash. Earthbound has a very dedicated community, so the folks that do, the few folks, I mean, that was a good example. Like woo, the handful of people that said woo, that was. That's kind of what Earthbound is. It's very loved by a very niche community. So I'd say, in general, when I'm trying to manage my time and devote it to something, I just try to get the best payout, because time is just the currency of your life, basically. Like, how do you give your life away to do something? So if whatever's going to be the most profitable and or just good for your life, for your memories, memory making, and what's just going to give make the biggest wave, I guess, in your life. Yeah.
So a big part of like music making, and I'm sure this is the case for all of us, is that it's very therapeutic for me. So releasing a project is sort of like, that's the culmination of a series of life events or things that have happened over the course of that year that I feel like should be spoken about. And so I think I used to be a lot more focused and stressed out about like very strict release. Like I have to have a release every year, every summer. There needs to be the thing. And if I don't, I've failed. And I just have stopped caring about that, which is not a good business model. But but I want very much for the things that I'm putting out to be meaningful and to be lasting. And I think that I was getting into the mindset of like, if I have to crunch out enough stuff that I'll be able to have content for shows or content for conventions. But ultimately, the last project that I did, which was a Kickstarter-funded Metroid EP, that project has had a lot of legs because I spent like time on it and I let it have like time to breathe instead of like trying to immediately follow it up with something. So I think each project now, moving forward, I'm not sure sort of what the desire is behind it, other than to just express myself and maybe make a little bit of money. But I do know that it always will be after some time has passed between that and the last project. I'm not sure if that's really answering the question, but I'm sorry.
That answered the question very well. Double clicks?
For us, we do. I think everybody has sort of said this, that there's like so much email involved in being an independent musician, and there's so much like, we tour all the time and we play a lot of conventions and we do a lot of videos and we do a lot of albums, and those are basically the 4 different things that we could be spending time on at any given moment. And there's like an EP that we promised a year and a half ago that we still haven't finished because we've been touring so much and we've been putting out albums, and it's hard to prioritize the stuff we want to do. But it's basically just sort of what the goals are. For example, we find some musicians get very frustrated if they're not invited to like a particular event, and they want to work so hard to be like, I'm going to be able to play it at MagFest because I'm going to make a video game album and then I'll do this. And it's a lot of external validation that they're hoping for, and then once you get there, you're done. We try really hard to just build the project that is going to validate us by itself. So we're very proud of the music we put out, but we're not going to just write a Doctor Who song because we want to play at a Doctor Who convention or something like that. We have to make the art that comes from inside, which makes promising something a year and a half in advance turned out to be a terrible idea because it wasn't the art that we wanted to do when it was time to get around to it. But when we look at things like there's like a music cruise, we'd love to play on that music cruise. It's way more satisfying to us to like build our own shows and tour on our own and play for fewer people, but be able to start our own party instead of waiting for somebody to invite us to theirs. It's basically just setting the goals that we know we can reach ourselves without other people telling us that we're good.
Yeah, it's wonderful that all of you not only have defined success for yourselves, but also had defined what will be fulfilling about those projects for yourselves as well. So I was curious, on that same note, what are some of the bigger challenges that you all face individually with doing your respective projects?
Are we switching off?
Yeah.
You want to switch on?
Why don't you go ahead?
SAMMUS in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go SAMMUS in the middle. There you
That's
go.
cool. Okay, so challenges with projects, definitely meeting deadlines. So I will go back to this Kickstarter project. I was late by like 5 months with that. And I remember each day feeling like I'm losing so many fans right now. I'm losing so much. I'm losing the trust of all of these people who have entrusted me to put this project together. And ultimately, it ended up working out. But I don't recommend that. But I think unless you're someone who works well like this, setting dates ahead of time for projects is like very rarely a good idea, I think. Unless the project is already finished, it's already been mixed and mastered, you have the album art, you have your promotional strategy together, do not give dates for when you're going to be dropping things. I'm telling you, I've never have successfully navigated that, and it sucks. Being like, oh, haha, just kidding, wait 2 more weeks. Or 5 more months. So I think that's a huge challenge. Another challenge is finding, finding the right way to like promote your project. And I think that's a unique challenge of like nerd music or music that gets put into that category is like, where do I give this? Who will want to listen to this, and what outlets will want to share this? Should I just kind of send it out into the interwebs and see what happens, or try to do something really directed? And sometimes it can be really cool because you'll find success in places that you never thought were possible, or that other artists might not have success. But it also is really challenging because you can be kind of niche, right? So I would say that's another unique challenge. And then again, as I mentioned, the last one is when I'm making a project, I kind of give myself fully to it. So my relationships suffer with people during those times. I'm really introverted, period, but when I'm making music, it's like, don't even text me. So that's been really, really challenging for me, figuring out a way to be able to make music, devote myself to a project, but still be there for people who need me to be there for them.
Left, right? Which one would you like?
Who has something to say? Why don't we go with that?
All right. I don't know if I have something to say, but I have something to say. I would really like to consolidate my listening basis, perhaps. I have a lot of people who are kind of very upfront to me, like, hey, I came for the mashups. Where are more mashups? And then I have people who are like, hey, you did a rap album 2 years ago. Why don't you do more of that? I'm just like, how can I do both? Can I do both? I don't know.
Yeah, how do you decide that?
I don't. Really, I kind of go with whatever I'm feeling more enthusiastic about at the time. Which can lead me to my second problem that I struggle with the most, which is balancing the passions I have for different types of music. Like, for example, right now, I am really stuck between making like a very down-tempo XX-styled pop thing and doing like a way more funky, in-your-face kind of thing, or possibly doing both of those in the same album and figuring that out. And then there is also the added concern, like, will anyone even buy that? Is anyone on my current crazy fan base even into that? I have these video game fans, and I have these hip-hop heads, and my initial plan with the mashups was to try to bridge the gap between those two, and for the most part it succeeded. And fulfilling that established base is, despite maybe not going with what I creatively want to do at the time, it's the most immediately gratifying because they're just so hungry for it. So I guess I could sum it up as what I want versus what my listeners want, that struggle.
I have something to say now. This is a thing we've been working on that it's actually very similar to that, which is like there are comedy festivals, for example, that comedy musicians play at, which frequently people call us comedy music, or they'll say we're nerd music or we're pop or folk. And these are all like, it's been because I write our bios. It's like, what do I call us, and should I just change all of the songs we write in order that this bio will be way easier to write? And then it is very it's hard because I want to have like a set we can play at a comedy show that's all funny, but then we have a bunch of just fucking depressing songs about science or whatever. It's different. It's hard because you want to sort of put yourself in a box that people can understand. And I've recently come to the decision that the reason anybody cares about us at all is that we are more than one thing, like your songs are about. And so I just don't care anymore. And just write really long bios that nobody uses. It is more satisfying, I think, to try. I mean, I just have so many different things that I want to do. Like, I want to write a really silly song, or like a nightmare lullaby that really doesn't necessarily have a social message, and then some other songs that do. And it's okay that our stuff is a little bit schizophrenic, I guess, because it's just what we are anyway. And the other one I was going to say, challenge-wise, is dicks on the internet. Being mean people, not the other kinds. And it was it's really, really tempting, and it's like a survival instinct. You're afraid of the things that are bad, so like you concentrate on the lion chasing you instead of like the berries that you could be eating, you know. And I've gotten to the point where there are a lot of people, like women, who are harassed on the internet and with Gamergate and stuff, where we will we'll log the threats and stuff just to like, yes, this exists. Please believe me that this is real. And I was doing that for a while, and then I realized I should probably be doing that with the positive stuff as well, so that I'm not just remembering the horrible people, but also the people who, the kids who draw pictures of us. It's like, that's great. Why don't I have that on my phone? And people will tell you, like, don't read the comments, and you can't listen to the praise or the negative stuff. And I don't believe that because it's there and I'm gonna look at it anyways, so I might as well enjoy the good stuff and the bad.
For me, I think one of the biggest, it's really just what you were saying too, Mello, about the dichotomy of what is immediately gratifying for yourself and then that compared to what the audience wants. Pretty much every show that we play, people are like, yeah, we already bought that live album, and we bought that live album. When are you going to do a studio album? And we just have not recorded a studio album. And that's problem number one, because I'm frankly scared of recording a very polished product, because I am afraid I would just fall in this like black hole of perfectionism and like trying to make it would just never finish.
I'll vouch for him on this. I grew up with the guy.
Yeah, well, Jeff, yeah. I mean, Jeff's been hounding me for however many years the Super Soul Bros has been a thing, and we just, we're going to get it done before MagFest. That's the plan. But the plan, I'm not giving it, okay.
If you guys tweet at them incessantly, they may get it done.
Yeah, well, but to be, what's that?
Just do a live show without an audience and just tell them it's a studio album.
No, exactly. That's kind of that's more or less what we're gonna probably do, is just run in the studio for like 2 days and just do it all live and be like, yeah, that was studio. Yeah. But No, actually, so that's one problem for me personally. I don't think that's really a problem for a lot of people, but strangely enough, I'm just like weird about recording in a studio. I'm a live musician. I've always played live, and that's why I prefer that. I just like to do shows. It's immediately gratifying. You have the energy of the audience, and you always get something different with the type of music that we play, and that it's highly improvised, and we're just always meshing and gelling with each other in a different way each show.
I have to say that is like the perfectionism thing is such a problem with everybody. I think the balance between I want this to be perfect before it's released and I should probably release this before I die.
Right.
Right. Everybody deals with that.
I think that's what it is. Just you have to come to terms with just put something out because you don't know how much longer you have here. So just get it done. Like get something out.
You're gonna have a lot of projects in your life, and yeah.
This is an anxiety-filled panel for me.
Yes,
It's terrifying. It's like the thing about every project being like a piece of your life is like both the coolest and scariest thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I would assume it's kind of like having a child, in that eventually you have to let it go.
And there's a lot of crying involved.
There's a lot of crying involved, a lot of emotion.
So much crying.
Yeah, a lot of yourself is put into that. Yeah.
And then just for me personally also, being the leader of a band, I've always been the side man. I've played with a lot of established artists as like just a session player, but now having my own band project, I have zero experience. I just have the 3 or 4 years that we've been kind of trudging along, but I don't have a whole lot of leadership in a band context, and so trying to delegate or find. I'm still discovering game music festivals that exist that I didn't even know that like you guys have all played at, and I don't even know they exist. So like I got to get my act together. Basically, that's a problem for me. I'm kind of an outsider to the gaming music or just the gaming community. I mean, I play games, but I'm not familiar with all of the events and the festivals and the venues that would be receptive to the kind of music that we play. I'm, I think, kind of more so just a musician that plays music, and this is a really cool avenue that I want to explore, but I need to do some more homework on it.
Yeah, we started that way too, and there are still things we don't know about. And I think the really strong thing from coming from a place where you don't know everything, and the fact that this world doesn't have like a flowchart on the internet, means that we're all bringing new things into it, and that you're finding other places on the way that you can. Because if we all just did the same stuff, the audience would stay the exact same size. Mm-hmm. And if we're coming from different worlds, and somebody brings in comedy, and somebody brings in like feminist folk fans or something, right, that it makes it actually bigger. Totally. It's kind of a good thing. Yeah.
Was there another thing?
Oh, wait, did you already answer that question?
Yes, I did.
Bummer on the moderator's part right there. So I guess getting more into like the professional aspect of all of your careers, how does monetization factor in to each of your respective careers? And also, just this little thing, what advice would you have to people who want to monetize their work?
I've written like stuff about this, so I think I can be concise. Most of our money comes from crowdfunding. We've done 2 Kickstarters, which together have raised over $135,000, and we have a Patreon. Thank you. Thank you very much. A Patreon that gives us $2,000 a video, which is amazing, and that's surviving, and that's obviously not money we're rolling in, because that's not how Kickstarter and Patreon work, but we are able to, live in houses with other people in Portland, Oregon, and be alive. It's great. Yeah, it's awesome. And I think the main advice I have for you if you're trying to kickstart is that or do any crowdfunding, is that make a thing that you love so much you would do it for free. Find the people that like you because you're doing the thing you want to do, not, because of some idea of what you do that they have. And then just create an email list and a Twitter and collect all of your people, and don't have it be a mystery how you're going to find people again if you play a show for them once in Texas and then need their money to make an album later. We have a lot of friends who don't have a mailing list yet, or don't have a good social media yet, and I come from the communications world, and it's not as important as making art, but if you want to respect your art, you should gather the people so that they can help you because they want to. And if they don't want to, they won't back you on Kickstarter, and that's fine. Yeah. Yay.
I'm still struggling with this aspect of my music just because, and I think we've talked a little bit about this during the tour, I still feel a little bit icky about money, like asking for money. And it's strange because I know that what I'm doing takes time and energy. And when I request, services from other people, I'll ask, what is your rate? What do you charge? What would you like? But for me doing that, I feel like it's almost like disrespectful to ask people to give me money for things. I remember having this huge crisis when I dropped my first album because I wanted to charge like $8 or someone was like, you should charge money for it. And I was like, but then some people can't get it. And so people have had to have a lot of serious conversations with me about the fact that if this is something I want to do sustainably, I have to come to grips with dealing with money and asking for it. Somebody once told me that at least for like shows and those kinds of things, like asking for money in that context, try to ultimately aim for getting as much as you would be able to pay your rent with. If you get like a month's worth of rent for a show, that's awesome. So like try to even like shoot for that at some point. But yeah, I'm still a PhD student, so I still make money not make money. I'm definitely not rolling in money from like getting a PhD, but it's a steady income. So I haven't had to make any sort of big decisions music-wise about how to monetize things. But I think even just starting small or being like, I have a fee if somebody asks you to do something for you, those kinds of small steps I think will help, and eventually you'll figure out what you should be asking or what you feel comfortable asking for. But even putting out there, this is not just free labor for you, is a big step. So try to start with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, just valuing your time. And I'm actually really curious about your answers too, just because I don't know how to monetize. This is like a new game for me. So, but I mean, currently we only have like 2 CDs on Bandcamp, and I've just been using that, and maybe once a week or every other week someone buys an album. Like, we're not making a whole lot of money. And I don't expect we will until we make a really polished product to get out, and that can hopefully circulate. I think using platforms like Twitch for us, like being a live performance rather than like composing or doing something kind of in the behind the scenes and then showing like a polished product. Our band's strength, I think, is it being live. I think Twitch is a cool platform, and that being a way to really interact with the audience. And if we can find a way to monetize that, I mean, Twitchers make money doing that. So either like through tips and through that platform also selling our merchandise and just having a handful of people, hopefully more than a handful of people watching you on Twitch. That's just a way to get a lot of exposure on a regular basis. I don't know if that helps anybody, but yeah, that's something we're trying to start, is just playing music live on Twitch, and that being potentially like you could be having an audience of a large-scale venue on a regular basis watching you.
Yeah, we do an online show every month, and about 100 people watch it live, and SAMMUS was on, and then like 2,000 people watch later, but that doesn't make any money at all. We just do it on YouTube, and we see it. I mean, because of our because I feel like crowdfunding is weird because people often give us more money. Like, people will give us $5 per video on YouTube. They're getting an MP3 out of it. That's not worth $5. So like, it's not necessarily I'm paying for you for a specific item and you're paying me back. We do like stuff for free that we perceive as the community is giving us a particular amount of money to do stuff, and then we're gonna do stuff in a way that, and it doesn't work for everybody that way, but just the community we've built works nicely.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think just valuing yourself, and you have to have a little bit of vanity to just ask for some money, and I think that it's realistic. I mean, again, currency being like the time that you put into doing this that if someone else appreciates, what would it cost for you to do that in terms of, what would your rent be? What's the cost of living? And
Sometimes, the listener can forget that, this is a person who's making this stuff as well. So reminding them that, I'm doing this for you. Yeah, that can be very nice.
Totally. I think I've belabored that a little bit. So you go for it.
You got a good laugh from across the hall.
Very quickly, I have some CDs. I have a box down here of CDs. I sold out of them yesterday, so if you wanted to get a CD and you couldn't, I have some now.
I got to say, when we were talking earlier about this panel, SAMMUS was going through her email and she goes, "Oh, wow, the CDs showed up actually." But they weren't here in time last night, so anybody who wanted to buy one of her CDs, hella available.
Right. Do we all have stuff?
Everybody here's got merch.
Right on. So
I believe.
Come say hi after.
I recommend usually that you become a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. But if that's not possible, I make zero money off of the mashups that I made. Unfortunately, they are also the kind of thing that gets an insane amount of plays. So it's always been this struggle there. And I was having to take, people wanted to donate, and I was having to take these random weird donations that I felt super bad about. So Patreon really helped me with that and allowed people to give this fixed amount per month. And I would just feed like literally everything I'm making to patrons. And it's this great pipeline where I do not feel like I'm getting these random donations without any direct reward to the people who are giving them. So that's helped a lot. I'm not completely independent yet. I actually still live with my insanely supportive parents as I do this music thing. I have some profit coming in from the albums that I make personally, of course. And then I do a lot of mixing and mastering services, production services for people, things that I can do with my producer background in particular. And composing is kind of my main thing, especially composing for video games. If you get the right game, you hopefully end up working on a game that comes out. There's a lot of pitfalls in the game industry. It's a rough business. There are a lot of great ideas that don't quite make it off the ground. But if you work with the right people, like Midboss, shameless plug, and one of the best things about working in the gaming industry as a musician actually is the possibility that you will get the rights to sell the album of the game soundtrack on its own after the game is out, because then you have people who enjoyed the game coming to you and saying, "Hey, can I get this?" And yes, you can. Please get it. And that composing, I'm really looking forward to that possibly becoming just a career and being my main focus in way of monetization.
Do we want to take audience questions? Sounds like we have like 15.
At some point.
Yeah.
Do you have any more?
Yeah, I just had really one last question about how working with friends factors into business as you all move towards a more professional career with this. How do friends factor into that and working with them?
I can't do it. I try never to do it. It's really interesting which friendships can become good business relationships and which ones can't. You have friends that you would never want to work with in a professional enterprise because you know how they can be, kind of. But I have people that I worked with first that became friends after. Happen much more commonly than people that are friends first and then business partners after. I think that's my say on it.
Robbie? I mean, I'm working with all of my friends right now. This whole weekend we've been doing all the AV stuff, so we got buddies. It works out with the right people, and but yeah, you want to be just thoughtful of whom. It's just a person by person basis. It can happen to work with friends. But there's got to be, you'll only get so far if the professionalism or the professional agreement between you and your friend it can only get so far if that agreement isn't really solid. You got to kind of hold each other accountable if you want to get to a full-on professional kind of expectation.
Yeah, very much like what Tumelo said about coworkers and then friends in a way, or over friends to coworkers.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's sort of been said. I don't really recommend working with friends. And if it's something where like money or time is important, just because like you really could lose a friend if it's like I need this and you haven't carried your weight, or like you're fucking with my money or something. So like
it's very hard. Yeah.
So I tend to not really work with my friends in that context. I would say like my manager is really just my friend who answers my emails. And so that's been a great relationship, but we have had to have some like awkward conversations or some like, this was unacceptable, this was acceptable. So, it's give and take, but I would say in general, err on the side of not working with your friends. And if you happen to have a friendship that blossoms from a professional relationship, dope. But yeah, just be very, very careful.
We work together. You like working with me, right, Aubrey?
I'm surprised we're both still alive.
Yeah. But I don't think this would work if we weren't sisters and like have to see each other on Christmas anyway, so we can't strangle each other. We just like to watch each other cry a lot. It's most of
That helps.
this relationship. It does get weird when there's money involved in your stuff. We used to enlist a lot of help from friends like making videos and stuff, and now I feel weird about it because I'm getting money out of it and that's how I make my living, and it's not how. It's weird. And when we do things with friends, like a lot of my friends are performers, it works out. I just write awkwardly specific contracts, and just like, I know you don't like tweeting, so this says you have to tweet 5 times if you're going to go on tour with me, and it's awkward, but that's the contract now, and it doesn't feel like a friendship thing, but it's like, this is my job, so we'll just do it that way.
Well, on that note, does anybody have any questions? Back here.
Have you ever encountered the exposure kind of trap, and how have you avoided that, and what times have you needed to actually go like that?
That's a good one.
That's a very good one.
That's a great question. We've played shows for free. I think everybody plays shows for free, especially at the beginning when you're terrible and you don't deserve money.
Whoa.
Like an open mic, right? Like it's at this point we just tell people we can't afford to play a show that doesn't pay us, and we just have never allowed ourselves to. It's enough of like, if you have one bad gig, you're not even getting paid. You realize that you never want to do that again, and so you say, I can, if I get $500, at least I know, even if I'm just crying on stage and no one is looking at me, at least I have $500 later. And we don't write for free. Even like, there are like a lot of like charity compilations, wonderful projects of fantastic causes. It's just a limited amount of time. And if you have the ability to say, I'm busy and I promise I do charity work of my own, I can't always do whatever everybody asks us to do. It's a hard thing to do, but you just have to respect yourself and respect everybody else, and know when you work for free, you're hurting other people as well.
I think there's definitely a balance, because I have actually, I live in Ithaca, New York, which is about 5 hours from New York City, so it's not necessarily convenient, but I can get there if I need to. And early on, I remember I was taking shows in New York City that were like on school nights, and I would drive 5 hours to New York City, I would perform, then I would drive 5 hours back, and it was really, really bad. But I was actually making connections with people, and people were kind of, really, I think even the struggle or that story was enough for people to be like, yo, we gotta like give it up for this chick. And a lot of that stuff was for free. I don't recommend that, but I would say that if you have time early on, like Angela was saying, you may have to do some stuff, for a not necessarily nice rate or for free. But it's contingent on when you decide, like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time, or I don't, like, my body can't handle this. Like, I remember getting in a car accident because during one of these trips where I was, like, going, and it was like 2 a.m. I was super sleepy. It crashed into the side of a banister, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to take better care of myself. I'm only going to take the gigs that are really going to be worth it for me. And the last thing I would say is that some opportunities will allow you to be paid in the form of, like, oh, I'm going to sell a shit ton of merch there. So it's okay if they're not giving me as much on the front end, if I know that this is a place where, like, I can bring a bunch of t-shirts and CDs and I will make a lot back. So there's give and take, but definitely early on you may have to take some gigs. Just see if it's like a shady promoter, and then don't do it.
Yeah, only do it for free if you know it's going to be good and you know that you're not the only person not getting paid. Like, there are people who will ask you to play a gig for free, and everyone else there from the top to the bottom is getting paid for doing their job. That's just not, not chill.
Yeah, have conversations with other people, I would say, other artists, and see what's going on with them.
Totally, and I think everyone starts at that point for exposure. We played at a burrito spot, and that was where we recorded our first album, Iguanas. They gave us burritos, and that was it. But it was exposure because it was on FanimeCon weekend, which is like on Memorial Day weekend at this convention center, actually. There's like a bunch of people, they come in costume. It's anime, video games, just a bunch of, it's like this, but just a bit bigger. A lot of people coming to town, and they would just go to Iguanas down the street, so we would play and get exposure. We did that for 2 years, and that was just kind of like our annual thing. Like, okay, we'll get together and play some video game tunes. And then after that, when a lot of people would come up to us and say, why aren't you playing at Fanime? Or why aren't you submitting to perform at MagFest? And I'm like, what's MagFest? And so things, they snowball, and then once you realize your value, then you can start. If people start telling you you should be getting paid for this, start opening your ears and start asking for it.
I think there's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything bad as an artist if you're doing something for free. If you find yourself constantly doing things for free and not getting anywhere with it, then is when you might have to ask yourself if it's right. Like Angela was saying, just evaluating every opportunity and keeping your respect, feeling good about what you're doing. The one big for exposure situation that I had was a negative one, however. I was working with probably the most popular rapper in my small town of Lexington, Kentucky. I was young and dumb. This is how all these stories start. And I sent a beat to him through email, which is instrumental in hip-hop music. And he really enjoyed it. And I continued just making these beats for him without ever having any conversation about money, because it was great exposure for me having my music behind this very well-known artist in our town. But after about a year of doing this, unfortunately an entire year, I realized that it was getting all the return on his end and not really changing too much for me with the way it was promoted. And I remember saying, hey, so can I get like $60 for this one? Never heard back. He actually he unfriended me on Facebook after that, and so that was a big explosive ending to that relationship. Internet beef, it's real.
So I'm really sorry. We are kind of running pretty to the end of our time here. We can do one more question if it can be answered in a minute.
Yeah.
Right here in front.
Real quick, if it goes out, someone say, social networking, what is the absolute must-do because it's exhausting?
Must do social network. I mean, I don't know. Instagram goes everywhere. Just do one well and have everything else and link it together. Like, if you only ever want to post on Facebook, just have a Twitter so people can tag you on Twitter and have your link go to your website or something. Just have it.
Gosh, this is hard. I guess know what your strength is, because each social media platform has a different kind of thing. Like, if you know people think you're really witty, I would say Twitter's great because it's just conversation. But if you have like a couple major things happen to you every month, I would say Facebook. Post something big, there. You know, you don't have to be super conversational there. And if you just look awesome and do awesome shit, then Instagram is great. But like really knowing what platform fits your strength if you're gonna focus on one. But I would say do all of them, do everything, do the most.
Same thing.
Everything you can without going crazy. Twitter is great for game dev. Game dev Twitter is always on fire, and it's full of a bunch of on good fire. And it's full of a bunch of great people. So that's really good for me trying to get into the composer game.
Yeah, sorry, really quick. Twitter has been the most effective for me in terms of actually finding opportunities and like building connections out of all of the platforms.
And we got 4 minutes left at the top of the hour, and because I want to live on the edge, can anybody give us one last question? This guy had his right over here. Right.
So, as an artist, there is a lot of bad habits that I've obviously come across. How do you get over your bad habits as an artist, such as apathy, confidence?
Okay, so getting over apathy.
I haven't gotten over mine, so I'll listen to y'all.
Yeah. Just set realistic goals. I don't know, I sleep till noon most of the time. It's fine. I just stay up till 3 working. So it just do what the only realistic, deal with who you know you are. You can't fix yourself before you become an artist. You have to just be a broken fucking person and make stuff.
Perfectly imperfect. I love it.
I'm really shy, and to have to, kind of go out and talk to people and tell them about my music. Not only that, but to sell myself, to take the sum of myself and package that somehow is terrifying. So what I will usually do for my particular situation is give myself like, okay, I'm going to go to this event for an hour and a half. I have a time set, like an alarm set on like a watch or a phone or whatever I have on me. And once that alarm is up, I start exiting and saying goodbyes. But in that hour and a half, I have to be on fire, like business cards, shaking hands, knowing people's names. After that, I go home and watch One Piece.
And I would say that, so the way that I've been recording this last project is I'm working with an engineer in Queens, which again is about 5 hours for me. So if I book the time, it's a waste of my time and money if I don't have my shit together. So I think putting the pressure of having somebody else involved in the equation, and again, it's about knowing your working style, because you could end a relationship that way. But with me, it's forced me to like have things together that would not be together if it was just me recording in my, my bedroom. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of our panelists here. Too Mellow, Super Soul Bros, SAMMUS, DOUBLECLICKS. And thank you all for coming out.